Look at that.
Well, hello, everyone, and it's so exciting to see all of you here at our breakout session, and I see some wonderful people here, and so we're just kind of transitioning into our next room, so to speak, so I'm glad we got our awesome panelists here, as well as we've got a lot of attendees that joined, so I'm glad you all are here, and let's kick it off, because I think we're going to have a fun time in this session, because we got a great group. So to get started, this is Collaboration Track B, Partnering Effectively with Research Universities. And so I'm going to be introducing our moderator for today, and that's Anthony Herrera, who is the founding executive director of Furman Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He also sits on the SCBIO Board of Directors and is involved with the SCBIO Foundation Board as well. So Anthony, I'm going to hand things over to you, and we look forward to a wonderful session with some great insights on partnering effectively with research universities.
Thank you, Morgan, and good morning, South Carolina. It's great to be here today with SCBIO in this boot camp, and I'm excited to be hosting and moderating this session with some distinguished guests. I'm Anthony Herrera with Furman University's Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm excited to be moderating this session entitled Partnering Effectively with Research Universities. And right before I have our guest panelists introduce themselves, just want to lead with some ground rules. Everybody, if you can see in your chat box right below the screen, we want to make sure this is a discussion. And the way we're going to do that is utilizing the chat box. So if you have questions, please put them in there. We are going to be monitoring that and asking our panelists those questions. So be sure to ask your questions as they come up. And just to make sure everybody's chat box is working, it looks like we have a good audience today. If everybody would put in what city and state they're coming from. I'm not going to assume everybody's in South Carolina, so city and state, if you put it in the chat box so we can see where you're coming from, as well as I want to know, the panelists want to know, have you been involved in a research, an academic institution partnership, right? Either from the university side or from the other side. So yes or no. So again, your city and state, as well as have you been a part of a partnership with an academic institution in some capacity. We just want to get a flavor of where our audience is coming from, and we'll revisit your responses shortly. I want to kick off with our distinguished guests. Our first one, and this is a no ranking, but alphabetically, Clemson University, Angela Lockman. Welcome. Angela, say a few words.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm with our Office of Corporate Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives. Glad to be here today. In our office, we're really focused on corporate and government partners, really fostering that public-private partnership and advancing research programs for the university. I'm specifically focused on the life sciences industries as part of my portfolio.
Thank you, Angela. Great to have you. Next up, we got Mike Rusnak with the Medical University of South Carolina. Mike, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Great to be here. Welcome, everybody. I am Michael Rusnak. As you know, I'm the Executive Director for the Foundation of Research Development at the Medical University of South Carolina, MUSC. That's the tech transfer and I guess collaboration / commercialization arm of MUSC.
Thank you, Mike. And we also have the one and only Chad Hardaway from the University of South Carolina. Chad.
Hey, I'm Chad Hardaway. Happy to be here with my fellow colleagues. I'm with the University of South Carolina. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Innovation, Partnerships, and Economic Engagement.
Welcome, Chad. Thank you again. We have a great audience here. A lot of folks from Greenville, Charleston, Columbia. We even have somebody from Jamaica. I think that's going to be the furthest place away. Summerville, South Carolina, Spartanburg. A lot of folks, Angela, Chad, and Mike, who have been involved in some type of partnership with an academic university. And so we want to kick off. We have a run of show today. We want to talk about the good, the bad, and collaboration with academic institutions. So right off the back, I'm going to open this up and sending this to Angela. I want to talk about, in your experience, can you talk about what has been a positive, successful opportunity for a partnership with the university?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very excited to be involved last year when we kicked off a research engagement with Nephron. I think we're up against Lou Kennedy this morning in a counter track session. But last year, we started a robotics research project with Nephron. We had a relationship with Nephron for a while, but this was our very first research project with Dr. Sophie Wong. And really, we focused on developing a prototype of a benchtop robotic arm to fill, cap, and fill syringes to help automate that process. And we are now, that was successful, and we're beginning phase 2, and we're very excited about the opportunity to expand the research into applying more aseptic techniques to the process and working to advance the prototype to more of a production-ready robot that could operate within a confined clean room manufacturing space. It's always great to be engaged with South Carolina companies, and especially rapidly growing companies like Nephron.
Angela, that's a fascinating opportunity. Could you expand on how did that come about? Was that just organically over discussions? Was it Nephron coming to you first? I mean, just how did that start? Where did this originate from?
Yeah, it was organically through discussions. Nephron had a need, and the university and our highest levels of leadership had relationships with Nephron over the years. We had relationships in the College of Engineering, the College of Science, and as Nephron was looking at their needs as well as just needs across the pharmaceutical industry to really fill the need for critical pharmaceuticals that where there are shortages, there was a need to really automate more of the manufacturing process. And with the engineering expertise that we had within our faculty, it just clicked for us to work together on this project.
Absolutely. Thanks, Angela. Chad, I know you've had over with USC some opportunities, not only with Nephron, some other organizations. Can you talk about some of the success examples you have with a partnership?
Yeah, so we rebooted our organization about 2012, 2013, where we combined our tech transfer office, our incubator, our research campus efforts, and then rolled all that into like a corporate and government outreach arm. And so the first partnership we pursued straight out of the gate was with IBM, and my boss Bill Kirkland was a former IBMer, so he kind of knew we had a little inside baseball going. But one of the things that was really interesting for us is we started out the IBM engagement doing nothing related to what we're doing now. We actually started the IBM engagement by outsourcing about 150 FTEs from USC on the IT side, and that gave us about $1.5 million cost savings a year for about 10 years. Saved the university about $15 million, and that was just straight personnel and things like that. And what IBM got in return was they got a home base at USC where they could not only get work with us to do our upper higher ed work with IBM, doing such things, getting PeopleSoft and things like that in place, but it also positioned IBM to be able to have a epicenter in Columbia, which allowed them to go get state contracts. And I think they've got a health and human services contract and some other things. So it was a true win-win that started the whole thing, and that had nothing to do with intellectual property or innovation or whatever, but that was how we started. And what grew out of that, or the kind of what we told them that the kind of thing we told them that had to happen as a result of that, is they had to basically make us their center of innovation in the United States. And so what they did is they started bringing their clients, and lo and behold, a lot of their clients are South Carolina based companies, especially in manufacturing. And so what that's led to is through IBM, we've been able to sit at the table and almost be a consultant along with them, but it's really given us exposure to a lot of great companies like Siemens, Samsung, Yaskawa, Boeing, and what that has done, and obviously Nephron, is it really taught us how to be good consultants and listen to industry problems and develop solutions that are based on what they need rather than what we think is important at the university. And I think that's made all the difference. Most universities spend a lot of time telling people, all the great stuff we do, and here's what you need to do to work with us. And And with us, we had the chance to flip the script. And I think that's really made the difference for us. And that really is kind of the undertone of what we do. We're very customer focused, customer oriented. And we're really that feedback loop back into the university and to the institution, telling the university every day how we need to adjust and pivot to be more adaptable and relevant in the world around us.
Absolutely. And no better way to be relevant and adaptable is to collaborate with these organizations. In fact, I want to put this question out to the audience. Just if you can put in the chat box, what organization are you representing? So we'd like to get a good sense of, is it, other academic institutions, is it corporations, is it civic institutions, just so we have a good flavor of what type of organizations and the type of partnerships. I think, Chad, you gave a great example of the power of a collaboration with IBM, right? And leveraging their network and bringing other organizations and exposing USC to those. Mike, I want to put that question to you as well. So what partnership example do you have that has shown success? And, Chad gave an example of, how that created cost savings for the university and exposure. How does MUSC benefit from these type of partnerships?
Yeah, I want to sort of think that Chad made a great segue when he said flip the script, because that's really where the academics can take advantage, or at least get into an industry collaboration with a sense of accountability and responsibility. I'm going to talk about Siemens a little bit, and I got a shout out to our external affairs folks, because they started looking at partnerships internally, saying who do we have that we can partner with, and what do we have that can be an advantage to somebody. And one of the things that came top, one of the industries that came top of the list was Siemens, because on the medical center side, we have a lot of Siemens equipment. And they went out to Siemens and said, hey, we've got all this equipment, wouldn't it be great if we had some kind of bigger relationship where we could leverage that equipment to test things that you have, new instrumentation or new software? And how can we work together? And so it really blossomed from there into, yes, you have instruments and we can do testing, but also, what other projects can we do? And then we set up a joint steering committee where we're now looking at individual projects, which is above and beyond this, this basic customer kind of relationship. And what we did in respects is we said we're going to do this as we go and not worry about things like intellectual property, because I think this is where academics can get into trouble, where they take their intellectual property, hold it close to their chest, and then and then industry just kind of backs away and said, well, we're spending a lot of money here, or we're working together here, and we need to work together, and that IP is, we're putting a lot of money in, and how can we at least share in some way, shape, or form? Yeah, we got to loosen up on the IP side and look at it in the long picture of how much not only money is involved in the collaboration, but also what it brings in the long term besides money.
Absolutely, and that's a great segue, Mike, on talking about the challenges of IP and aligning goals. And so, kind of this next segment, I want to talk about the challenges of doing a partnership with an academic university. We know clearly there's benefits, collaborations always improves the outcomes, but there comes some challenges and some hurdles. And so, Chad, I want to come back to you. If you can talk about what are those challenges, and maybe giving our audience some advice on, how do you overcome, or as they think about doing a partnership, what they should be thinking about when they come into these.
So, it's funny. We had a conversation yesterday. I had a conversation yesterday with Council on Competitiveness. I think the biggest thing that we need from the outside world is for you to be extremely pragmatic. I was in a conversation with Susie Shannon with Council on Competitiveness, and we were talking about workforce development and how we educate and create the student workers to go in the workforce. And somebody on the call was like, oh, well, we need to get the industry partners more engaged with the universities in research, and we need to get them more engaged with the universities in, intellectual property development, or just things like that. And I think that a lot of people think about universities, and they think about us kind of like McDonald's. They think we only have Big Macs, we only got cheeseburgers, fries, and all that. I mean, where we've really made the most headway is when companies come in and I ask the question all the time, and anybody who's ever been in a meeting with me knows I do it. And I just say, hey, if you could have anything you want, what would you ask for? And I think, you know, that really is what is the most helpful to us, because I can tell you, I tell people all the time, the job that we do at USC, the hardest job is not the outside sales. It's not dealing with the outside world and getting that value proposition. The hardest part is my inside sales job. And how do I get my inside people to actually, number one, do what the industry partners want to do, and get the organizations to move quicker. You know, that's kind of why I've got a job, because we're kind of the irritator. So the outside world doesn't have to be. And so, you know, I tell people all the time, I need you to be difficult. I need you to be pragmatic, and I need you to, you know, get a bunch of your friends and go help me make the case of why the university needs to do things differently. And we've been successful that way. So I think that, like, don't be afraid to push us. Don't be afraid to challenge us. I think when we get into problems is when the outside world kind of thinks too small, and you know, and they don't force the issue with us. And so I think that, especially with COVID and where we are right now, I mean, this is a turning point for universities and places of higher education. You know, are we going to be just virtual? Or are we going to be more relevant? And how do we do that? So, you know, I like it. I'm really happy, because the conversations we've been having for 5-10 years are the conversations we're having right now, because we're really having to redefine what makes us valuable. So I would say, from the outside world, you know, we just need more of you to, you know, to come in and pressure us and stress us and push us to be more relevant and to help you solve your problems. And I'll end with this. You know, I tell people our office exists for 2 reasons. Universities don't know how to sell what they have, and people don't know how to buy what we've got. So, you know, the more dialogue and the more conversation we can have to do that. And I would say too, you know, don't give up. You know, people can throw up their hands and say, you know, can't you work with universities? You know, let's do, you know, don't give up, keep fighting, and, you know, and force us to work together. You know, some of the best work we do is when we have Clemson, MUSC, and USC at the table, and we combine forces. I know it's football season, but, you know, don't get caught up in the, especially for the in-state folks, don't get caught up in the rivalry. You know, we are much more of the same mind on the research and innovation side. And you know, we're going to solve problems together, and we want you to approach us together. So I'll stop there.
That's great. I appreciate it. And we're going to get to that, talking about collaboration among academic institutions. But I want to move to you, Angela. Same question. You know, Chad, I mean, he said it first, right? You know, it's like going to McDonald's your way right away at the Golden Arches. When you partner with academic institutions, there are some challenges. And it seems like a lot of those challenges are internal. Angela, what advice do you have to our audience talking about how do you persevere with a partnership with a university?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to make the right connections at the university. So coming in through offices like ours that are represented here today, who really serve as voice of industry for the university and can bring the various parts of the university to the table, is important. Working with us to clearly articulate what that goal is and what the ROI is. Help us to be able to communicate to our internal stakeholders, what is your ROI? And it's okay for some of that ROI to be very specific to the company. There could be a philanthropic component to it. And of course, the opportunity to just advance an industry or advance research. You know, Arthrex is a great example of that. At Clemson, they came in with, we had a small research relationship with them over the years. Once they broke ground on the facility there in Anderson, we really worked together to do more together. And Arthrex had a really clear vision of opportunity for our students, for our workforce, and for the medical device industry. And we piloted with them a program that is now evolving, but they showed patience in working with us, challenging us to do something new, something interdisciplinary. And the result, I believe, is going to be something very innovative for the medical device industry, and a great opportunity for our students as well, and others in the medical device industry through their scholarship program and the interdisciplinary curriculum that we're developing with them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Angela. That's great advice on how to persevere. We actually got a question coming in from the audience in the Q&A. Mike, I'm going to put it out for you, but I'm going to ask the whole panel to chime in here. And this is coming from Brian Davis over at what we call the Little Giant here in South Carolina, Furman University's Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And his question is, how would you compare pros and cons of working with external, smaller, earlier stage companies, more of the startup versus big industry? I know we've all referenced some big companies here in South Carolina, but what does it look like for a small startup or an early stage company to partner with the university? Mike, you have any advice on that?
Well, not so much, but we've looked at smaller, middle-sized companies to work with, and in those particular cases, you've got to understand their cash strapped, right? So you've got to find other ways of working with these folks that the benefits can be much more than the cash line. There's just no way that they're going to put up a lot of money to do a lot of different things. So, you got to think about what's the futures. What are, maybe you get some sort of upside on the back end, which is probably the best way to go about it. And, but you shouldn't discount the fact that you still got to work together. You still have to understand that this is research versus industry versus academics. And you need to bring your value to where they're at, as opposed to, trying to force what you have on them. That's, again, flipping the screen type of thing. So that's really what you got to think about, is you're not going to get something up front. And so you really got to have a better match.
Absolutely. Chad, anything to add on that, on how you partner with earlier stage companies and what success looks like there?
So one of the things that we did when we kind of put all these offices together is we realized what we were doing from the tech transfer, all the way from tech transfer, entrepreneurship, in corporate side, is we were kind of creating this continuum, whether we liked it or not. We kind of created this continuum from ideas, whether the ideas come from the startups or whether they come from the faculty. They're just ideas, they're startups. And then, we have the continuum. So we have, we can help tell them how to protect it. We can give them an office space. We can put them with other startups. We also can put them with industry partners that are on campus, and then ultimately connect those with industry needs. So, when we started doing this, we realized that what we were really doing was building this for the startup community, in the sense that we had startups coming in and we had this great pipeline, and it was really like, hey, we're going to push these guys down the road and, ultimately to the marketplace where every startup wants to be. So we viewed that as a line, as a continuum from, idea to marketplace. And what we realized actually is it works more like a circle. So I had to go back and watch The Lion King to figure out what that meant. But what we realized is that it really does work that way, where everything that we do that's good for startups is also good for industry. Everything we do where we're helping industry make their problems small and bring them down and segment them, that's just as good for startups. And so what we've seen is we've actually seen not only the stuff we do that's good for startups help the startups do more and get down the road and engage with the industry and develop their product. We've also seen industry love that approach and that mentality, and actually help push a lot of their ideas back, what I would call, into the startup mode. So, for us, I would say, the numbers are bigger, and some of the value propositions are different. The problems are more defined, but we treat startups and industry partners the same way. It's still customer discovery. It's still, pushing them to pivot. It's failing fast. And so that makes it real easy for us, because we can't do more than a couple of things. So for us, we really just have the same mentality, whether it's a startup or a big company. Like I said, the products are different. We'll push a startup toward SBIR, STTR. That being said, we've pushed big companies to sponsor SBIRs and STTRs with our faculty or with small businesses. So, for us, it's very similar. And it really is this, it really fits into this big ecosystem. And because the ultimate goal for us is we want our startups, we need to connect our startups with the industry partners in South Carolina, because that's where the base comes from. That's where the market is. So for us, it's kind of the same thing.
Thanks, Chad. That's great. You referenced some great resources. Even Dick Pace in our audience mentioned in our chat box, STTR, as well as the SCRA, giving out some of those grants and helping some of these earlier stage opportunities. And I'm going to move us now to what I call in this part. We talk about the good, the challenges, or the bad, and then I call it the ugly, because we sometimes think, well, what if you get multiple academic institutions working together in a collaboration? Does that get more challenging? There has been some tremendous success here in South Carolina with all of your institutions. Angela, I'll start with you. Can you talk about a collaboration where multiple academic institutions were partnering? What did that look like, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, so, ongoing now, MUSC is our clinical partner for our COVID testing for our students. We have opportunities, if I think specifically about COVID, where we have worked with Prisma Health, the Health Sciences Center, on funding opportunities for across multiple academic institutions. So, and we've also worked some on what I thought was innovative this summer, as COVID was impacting us academically, and student internships and summer jobs were evaporating because of the inability to be in person. And we actually were part of a program where we had a COVID challenge for our students, and multiple academic institutions were involved, and the students had an opportunity to have that engagement, do some research. I think the winning team developed a prototype test that could deliver results in 10 minutes for COVID testing. So we do, I think, echoing maybe what Chad was saying earlier, we're a small state. The academic institutions can work well together when there are opportunities for us to help advance the state and work together for the students.
Absolutely. Mike, I'm going to come to you as well. I mean, I know you've, even in this time, addressing the pandemic and COVID, MUSC has been involved with, assisting, the community. How is that? What does that look like? And how's that played out for MUSC?
Well, I think that because of the initial, not a huge uptick in COVID originally, got the university, it really, got them on their toes, really working hard to make sure that nothing, that they were ready. And then when we had that increase of cases, we were ready and had all the infrastructure and had everything in place for that. So that worked really well. And again, it's trying to work with everybody in the, working with Roper St. Francis as well, is making sure this is all about the community and not about different institutions, etc. And yes, it's worked out really well for our collaboration with Clemson and helping those folks out. And I just want to say that I want to flip it a little bit and go into the education side and let everybody know that we've initiated some significant projects with the engineering department at Clemson, and the MEng people have really been collaborative in getting their, getting students and getting graduate students into MUSC next to docs and really looking at solving problems. So that's been pretty productive, and it's had its challenges as well. How to get the distance is really a challenge, and maybe this COVID thing, like Chad was saying, is it's helped us with the distance issues, and that we normally think that we have to be there, and now we've found ways that we can work without us being there. So I'd say there's still challenges between universities, but I think South Carolina is pretty close knit, and I think we can achieve a lot together, and I think it's still going in that direction.
Absolutely. We're coming up on the last couple of minutes here, and so I'm going to go around the horn. If there's any last minute questions or comments by the audience, put it in the chat box. We're going to start with Angela again with Clemson, and just any last minute advice for our audience on partnering with universities. What should they know? A lot of them have already, but should they be thinking bigger and broader? Last minute advice. Angela, this goes to you.
Yeah, I'd say think big and broad. Do, as I mentioned earlier, try to enter in through these offices and roles that are set up to interface with industry, large and small, and we can help. with our experience, think through some solutions and some innovative approaches to your project.
I love that. That's great. Big and broad. That's collaboration. Real quickly, before I go to you, Chad, I want to encourage everybody to put in their LinkedIn profile in the chat box so everybody can connect. I think that's will start a lot of partnerships, knowing who's here and how we can talk with each other. We're all interested in partnerships. Chad, this goes to you. Again, what advice do you give to the audience on as they start to think about partnerships and what could be?
I mean, I think I said a lot of it already, but I would just say, you know, no matter how big or small or where you are, you know, please don't hesitate to reach out. I think Angela's exactly right. Please find the offices or find us. We are typically the people that are herding the cats. And remember that universities are more like countries and less like corporations. So it is possible to hear 20 different stories from 20 different people from USC. But I would say, you know, that's why we're here, to kind of be the conduit and to help manage that value proposition. And come see us or Zoom us or whatever.
Be great. And last, Mike, any advice you have as well?
Yeah, if you're industry or startup or anybody you want to come to an academic, I would suggest that that the academic understand that there is this misnomer out there, what's really tough to work with academics. And I would say that you know, that there's a big change going on right there. And my perspective is, anybody comes to me from industry, I try to get rid of that question right away and say, look, you may think we're hard to deal with, but that's others. It's not us, because I just told you so. And I think that helps a lot. And I think that's something that we need to change, is to get this misnomer that universities are hard to work with. And I think, you know, with more industry people coming into academics, I think they're understanding it a little bit better. And I think that's getting better. But I think we need to answer that question real quick. And I think we got to get that out of the industry's mind.
Yeah, that's been great. You know, I think a lot of nuggets of wisdom here on how to partner effectively with universities. Think big, think broad. Our community now more than ever needs these type of partnerships. You know, to all of our panelists' points, you know, universities are big and there's a lot of players. And so a lot of the challenges more internally than they are from the partner externally. So be patient, be persistent. Before I turn it over to Morgan, I want to thank all of our panelists from all of our top tier universities here in South Carolina: Angela Lockman from Clemson, Mike Rusnak from MUSC, Chad Hardaway from USC. Thank you all for being here. To SCBIO, thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. Morgan, I'm turning it back over to you. Thank you again.
Well, thanks, Anthony. And what an amazing discussion this was. I am a little sad I wasn't here beforehand to listen to the journey, but love all the engagement and love hearing all that you all had to say. So thanks to our awesome panelists for providing your insights. So we will now go into a 10-minute break session, and you are actually going to see those links in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see about our next wonderful panels. One track will feature Alchemy and ChartSpan as they share their stories of leading teams virtually effectively. And we've all been on Zoom lately, so we know what a task that is. And the other panel will feature a collaboration story between Columbia-based RhythmLink, Xeon, and MUSC. So again, we will have a 10-minute break before we head into that panel session. At any time, you can head back to the event landing page, which is the page that has all of the agenda times and the links, and then we will get started right about 10:45. So again, head to your next session or head back to that landing page, and we hope to see you at that session. If you do somehow get disconnected, like I said, head back to that landing page. We have to close this session before letting you in the next session, so you will be in the waiting room for just a little bit, and then after that session we're going to follow with an awesome economic development networking session where we will be able to see all of you together. So make sure to stick with us. We've got great sessions coming up, and we'll see you in a few after our 10-minute break. Thanks, everyone.